Welcome to the Heart of a Viking. This channel offers elementary art lessons taught by Mrs. Minto from the Cape Henlopen School District in Delaware. I look forward to virtually creating with you. There are new lessons posted weekly. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss a single one. So go grab your art supplies and your thinking caps and let's begin. Well, hello Cape artists. Today we are beginning a project called needle felting. This particular project does require some specialty tools. I have these tools at school for us to use whenever you're there, but if you're at home, there's a good chance you won't have exactly what you need. So I really encourage you to watch the video anyways, learn a little something about needle felting, because believe it or not, the kits that will get you started with needle felting can be found at any craft store, probably even on Amazon. So it's not super tricky to find the tools. I just don't know that you have them today. All right, so let's learn a little about needle felting. The first thing is that needle felting requires wool. W-O-O-L. Wool is the hair of certain mammals, like sheep and goats. Other animals can have wool too, but for our particular project, probably the wool that comes from sheep and goats are going to be perfect. Wool is a natural material, and people use it for all kinds of things, like making clothes or blankets. It can be pulled and stretched and made into all kinds of cool things. Today, the wool that we're going to be using is going to be something called roving. That means that the wool has been sheared from the sheep and then has been cleaned because, sheep get dirty when they're out there in the field, and it's been combed. It's called carded, but it's kind of like a combing technique so that all the wool strands are in the same direction. So it's kind of like after you brush your hair, how all of the hairs on your head are going in the same direction. Think about your hair before that, and all the hairs are going in crazy directions, maybe even getting knotted up. Same idea with this wool. When you card the wool, you're basically combing it so that all the fibers are going in the same direction. Okay, so that's what we need to know about wool. Today we're going to be using a kind of wool that is roving because it's been combed, and I have some white and I have some that's been dyed as well. So I have some bright colors. And again, all of this can be found in a kit or maybe even on Amazon. You can find the different pieces. I'm also going to be using today a type of needle, and at the needle is a special needle for needle felting, and at the end of it, it has a barbed end. That means that there are little pieces of metal at the end of it that as you push it down through the roving, it sort of tangles up the materials and it makes the roving stick together and form whatever shape you happen to be making. I'm also going to be using a piece of styrofoam that's several inches thick. Mine is 2 inches, but the thicker the better, honestly. And I'm also going to be using a cookie cutter, a metal cookie cutter, and I'll explain why as we begin our project as well. All right, so let's see how we begin this really interesting technique called needle felting. Okay, so let's begin by getting our white roving, and I'm going to break it apart. I can always put more back in if I need it. And I'm going to push it into the cookie cutter shape. I happen to have a heart shape here. Any shape would work, obviously. And the purpose for the cookie cutter is so that I keep my hands on the outside of the sharp needle that I'm poking on the inside. So the first thing I did was I shoved my white roving into the cookie cutter shape. Now my hands are holding the cookie cutter on the outside so that I don't accidentally poke my little fingers. Of course, you can create needle felted works of art without the cookie cutter shape, but if it's your very first time, this just gives you the little bit added protection and hopefully will prevent you from poking your finger with the sharp needle. Okay, so I'm going to poke and poke and poke over and over and over all the way around the edges, in the middle, all parts of my heart, and I'm going to keep doing this until I feel like the roving is beginning to sort of tangle up and take on its own shape, its own heart shape, just like my cookie cutter. Okay, after you've done that for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and put my needle on the side here. See how I poked it in? take off the cookie cutter. Oh, the shape's looking good. And then I'm going to gently peel it off. Every now and then I like to peel mine off and flip it over. It does stick itself a little bit to the styrofoam, and it's okay to pull it gently. And then I'm going to pull it off and flip it over just like making pancakes. But I usually like to make sure that I put it right back in to the heart shape exactly how it was. So flipping it over and pushing it back into the cookie cutter heart shape. Okay, so now technically I'm poking from the opposite side of the felt. All right, so here I go. Again, poke, poke, poke until you feel like it's taking on the shape on its own. Okay, so you're going to continue doing that as many times as you feel like you need to until the shape really feels like it's coming together on its own. Now I'm going to start to incorporate some color into mine. So I'm going to take a little piece of my roving and pull off a little strand. It looks like this. Kind of reminds me of spider webs in a way, the kind you get at Halloween time. All right, and then I'm going to lay this on to my white roving, and after poking it for a few minutes, it will begin to stick. So at the beginning, it seems like it's not, sticking, it's not staying in place, looks kind of fluffy and odd, but I promise over time, the more poking, the better chance you have of getting it to stick. So I'm going to poke, 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 poke all the way around, and I'm choosing to do like an outline with this lavender, light purple sort of color. Okay, so let's see if I can get my lavender all the way around. Okay, so I'm starting to notice that mine's looking kind of round at the top. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking my needle and I'm just grabbing a few little fibers at a time and pulling them down and in. Now I have to be careful because it is possible to break these needles. They aren't really, really tough. So I need to be really careful that I'm not dragging and pulling a lot of the fibers, or it'll become too much and the needle will just snap. But do you see how it changed it? By just taking that end, and I might do that a little bit around the edges too. But did you notice what else? I've removed my cookie cutter, my protective layer. So I no longer have that metal between my sharp needle and my fingers. So I have to be really careful here with my left hand especially, because that needle is coming really close. If you do anything like this, you have to be super conscientious about where your fingers and thumb are so that you aren't accidentally poking into your own self instead of into the styrofoam and the roving. Okay, so I think I'm going to add some yellow here to brighten up the center. So I'm going to pull this off. I think I forgot to mention before that usually with the roving, you can just kind of pull it and it'll break. You don't really need scissors to cut it. So what I'm going to do now is make some polka dots. So I'm making some yellow dots. I pulled off a small amount, stuck it right onto my roving, and now I'm using my needle to poke around there and get it to stick in. Again, did you notice I don't have the metal cookie cutter, so I have to keep my fingers out of the way. And as I'm poking through, I'm making sure that the yellow dot adheres. I can check it from the back, but really I'm working just from the front right now. Okay, I'm going to do that a bunch more times to make some other dots on my needle felted heart. Okay, I think I'm going to put it back into my heart shape here, my cookie cutter, one more time. And I'm going to give it a couple of pokes from the front, and then I think I'm actually going to flip it over and do some pokes from the back as well. I really just want to make sure that all the color that I added is nice and stuck to all of the white that I had at the beginning. All right, and there we have it. This is our finished cookie cutter shaped needle felted heart. All right, I hope you had a great time making this or learning something about needle felting. I really hope it's a technique that you try sometime, and if you do, please take a picture and add it to your Artsonia account so that I can see what you're doing at home. All right, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you back here next time at the Heart of a Viking. HOB artists, don't forget to hop on over to Artsonia to upload a photograph of your piece of artwork to your art portfolio. I can't wait to see it.